So yesterday we learned the Mishnah at the bottom of Mem Gimel Amud Beis, and we learned that there's a machlokes b'Shama and b'Hillel whether you actually have to physically take action to start a shlichus yad, or if you're even planning to make shlichus yad, and we learned that's b'dibur, then the shlichus yad is already triggered. That was one shaila that was discussed. The other shaila that was discussed is assuming that you do have to take it lemaisa. Do you have to make a kinyan on it or not? And the Mishnah says you do. If you're magbia the barrel, then the entire barrel, the contents of the entire barrel, is under the problem of shlichus yad. But if you only took some out but didn't lift the barrel, then your shlichus yad scope is limited to the amount of wine that you took out. And we'll start the Gemara, which is right at the top of Mem Dalet Amud Beis. Minan how do we know, Zok the Gemara, that machshava might be enough, according to Beis Shammai? The Tana Rabbanan, Al Kol Dvar Pesha. So the Lashon HaPasuk, when it talks about the Shomer, is Al Kol Dvar Pesha, Al Shor, Al Chamor, Al Seh, Al Salma, Al Kol Aveda, Asher Yomer Ki Hu Zeh, At Hohelayim Yovei Dvar Shneim, Asher Yarshin Elohim Yishalom Shnayim L'Reyehu. So this is speaking about a Shomer, and it says Al Kol Dvar Pesha, just a word of Pesha. You're chayiv even if you only thought to do it. You're only chayiv when you actually do the aveira of shlichus yad, not when you merely think about it. Shenemar, because the pasuk says right there, im lo shalach yodai b'mlachas reyehu. So you see clearly the chayiv is only if there was a physical shlichus yad. I understand it says but Kfar Nemer Al Kol Dvar Pesha, which is mashma that it's even before you've actually taken the item. The pasuk indicates that you actually had to have done shlichus yad in order for there to be a chiyuv. So Al Kol Dvar Pesha, according to Beis Hillel, what are we going to learn from Al Kol Dvar Pesha? Not like Beis Shammai learns that even a machshava triggers a shlichus yad, but as follows: Sheyachol, I would have thought, Ainli Elahu, who could do shlichus yad? The shomer himself. What about Amar la'avdoi u'l'shluchai minayin? What if he told his eved or his shliach to do shlichus yad, to take something from his piktoinos, and they listened to him? How do you know that he is liable for them taking it on his behalf? Talmud Loimer Al Kol Dvar Pesha. So that all Beis Hillel learns from Al Kol Dvar Pesha is not that you could fulfill shlichus yad b'machshava. Rather, it tells you that you don't have to do it yourself. Even if you have a shliach do it, you will still be chayav. Gavalti. Hita es achavis. Amar Rav Lo Shanu, as Rashi says, Lo Shanu teheicha did notal v'lo yigbiya kol achavis poter. We don't say that you're potter and you're only liable for the wine that you took out because you didn't lift the barrel. You just took that wine out. Elo nishbra. That's only if the peril that occurred to the barrel was it broke. If it broke, you're not muchliyev. You're not responsible for the whole barrel. You're only responsible for the wine that you removed from the barrel. But avalach mitzah. What if the barrel became bad? The wine turned to vinegar, which occurs when there's some airspace in the barrel due to the fact that you removed some wine from it. Then mishalom askula. Then you'll have to pay in full. My timer, giri didei huda ahanula. This was not just a coincidence. You removing the little bit of wine is what directly caused the wine to spoil, so that's why you're responsible for it. So Rashi, avalach mitzah, pshiahi, that would be a pshia. Umazik b'yadayim, and it's as if the shomer who removed some of the wine was mazik the rest of the wine in the barrel, the yodav. The b'shvil shechisra hechmitza. The only reason why the barrel went bad is because some wine was removed. Shekein derech yayin lahachmitz bechli chaser. If it's not a full bottle, if it's not a full barrel, the air inside it will cause it the rest of the wine to spoil. Giri didei anela chitzim shaloi, his own arrows gormu lahachas. Beautiful. Higbeyu b'natal himena. But if you lifted the barrel to take some out, then you're responsible for the whole barrel. Amar Shmuel loy notal mamish. He didn't. Once he lifted the barrel, he didn't have to actually remove wine from the barrel. Once he picked up the barrel with the intent of taking the whole barrel, even though he didn't take anything, he will still be chayev al shlichas yad. Meaning, even though there has not been any part of the pikotin that was diminished, he merely lifted it up. He's already a shalech yad, and the chayev on it mo'insin like a gazlan. Zok Gemara, lema kasaver Shmuel shlichas yad ena shlichas chasaron. Is Shmuel going to align himself with Beis Shammai that holds shlichas yad ena shlichas chasaron? Actually, it's not Beis Shammai anymore, based on the different shot we had yesterday. But when Shmuel holds shlichas yad ena shlichas chasaron, he's chayav for shlichas yad, even though he has not yet removed any wine from the barrel. Amri loy. Normally he holds shlichas yad shlichas chasaron, but in this case it's different. Shani Yocha the Nichale the Ta'ava Hachavitz Kula bosses l'haravias. He only wants to take a revius out, but he knows if he only takes a revius out, that revius is likely to spoil, like we just learned. If it's not in a full barrel, sealed, it's going to spoil. So he really only wants a revius, but he wants the revius that he's going to take to remain fresh. So he took the whole barrel merely as an accessory to support the wine that he wanted. So therefore, we look at it like he took the whole barrel. By lifting the whole barrel, he's claiming the whole barrel. He's borrowing, so to speak, the whole barrel, and therefore he will be chayiv. And Rashi elaborates: the nichalated have a kula chavis bosses lai revius shetishomer isa revius v'loisachnis. The revius that he does want to take, he wants that to be remaining fresh. Thank you. I finally made my own coffee. Well, I came early. It's geschmack. I'm pumped like I'm early. Well, the oilam shlichas yad b'davar achar tzricha chasaron. And really, shlichas yad everywhere else, you must diminish the product that's there. But here, it's as if you took everything. Here you took this pikotin, you took this jug of wine, and you lifted it up. You wanted to be shalech yad, even though you only wanted to take a small portion out of it. Normally, you won't be chayiv because you didn't take any wine yet. You didn't take it to steal. And we know that we hold that unless you've diminished some of the pikadon, you will not trigger all of the responsibilities in the chiyuvim of shlichas yad. Avol yayin, that's with any other product. But wine, that won't stay fresh unless it's in a full barrel or a full jug, there, once he lifted up the barrel, we look at it like he already took the revius out of the barrel, and he placed the revius in the safe place. Where's the safe place? The very barrel that he took it from. So by him lifting up the barrel, he's actually diminishing it. He's taking away his revius, but he's also, in one step, keeping it in the barrel for safe storage, and he's borrowing the rest of the barrel to protect the wine that he has stolen. So only over there do we say that shlichas yad ain't shlichas chasaron, because in essence, if you analyze it, it is chasaron because you've taken the whole barrel. Now we know by a barrel of wine, you need a whole barrel to be full to protect a little bit of wine. How about when it comes to a wallet? Dinner. He was watching a money bag. He only wanted one dinner from the money bag, but he lifted up the whole bag. Is money like wine? Mao. Is it only by wine where we say, by taking the whole barrel, it will protect the little bit of wine that you intend to take? But you don't need to take the whole wallet. You can take one zuz and put it away, and that will be protected. The dinner. Maybe one dinner alone might get overlooked, might get lost. But if it's in a whole money bag, that will not get lost. So maybe an arniki has similar properties to a jug of wine. Let's see Rashi. He doesn't need the rest of the money. He just wants his little zuz. And therefore, shining terusa the arniki, kis mole near umishtamer. A full wallet is noticeable, and if it goes missing, you'll notice it more quickly. So that's the shaila. Is there a benefit in general in life to have a bigger pile of money because you'll notice more quickly if some goes missing than if you just have a quarter that goes missing? Baruch Hashem, we were zeicha to finish Hamafkid, and now the fun is over. So there's a halacha that you cannot be kohen something b'kesef, which means, let's say I want to buy your car, and I give you money to buy the car. We make up that I want to buy your car off you for $5,000. I give you $5,000. You have the $5,000. I'm not kohen the car. I can back out. Either one of us, at least according to one shita, holds that I can back out. It's no deal. The fact that you have the money, that I gave you the money, does not create any type of kinyan at all. Now, there is a shaila why it doesn't create a kinyan. There's one tzad who says that midaraisa just kesef doesn't work. But there's another tzad that says really it does work. But there's a gzeira d'rabbanan why we don't let it work. Because if I give you the cash and I'm cutting it right away, even before I take delivery of the product, what if a fire breaks out in your warehouse and you're going to quickly rush to save all of your inventory that you didn't sell yet? The sold inventory, you're not going to rush to save. What are you going to say? You're going to tell the purchaser, oh, yeah, I feel so bad. Your car that was parked in this corner of the garage got burnt. Baruch Hashem, we were able to salvage all the rest of the cars. Your car got burnt. And therefore, they disqualified kinyan kesef. So then, what are our options to actually be kind of? You could be kind of by Meshicha, if it's metalton, but you could also be kind of bechalipin. Bechalipin, it's not a monetary thing. It's davar b'davar, right? I'm going to give you one item and you give me another item. It's almost like a barter, but it's not a barter meaning value for value, because we know when we sell our chametz, we're giving the Rav thousands of dollars worth of chametz, and he's giving us a yarmulke, right? So kinyan chalipa means it's exchanging one item for another item, but it's not b'torah's barter. It's not b'torah's payment. Linking back to what we learned yesterday, I gave this guy the money, but I'm not kohen yet. So what status of the money has in his hands? Can he use the money, and therefore he might be a shomer sacher, or maybe even a shoyel? Or maybe he can't use the money, right? Similarly to a shulchani. Or maybe he can't use the money, and then he's only a shomer chinam. So Tosfos has a discussion that if you're going to hold that he's potter from any type of shmira on the money, well, then you have the same problem. He'll say your money got burnt, right? He'll say you give him the money, he'll say your money got burnt if we say it's not a kinyan. So what's the difference if he's going to say your merchandise got burnt or your money got burnt? So Tosfos says that there's not such a chashash to money will get burnt, but it's a discussion. So now we have as follows. Since we've disqualified kinyan kesef, then whenever you're exchanging one thing for another thing, like let's say silver for gold, if you paid with the item, that means I made a mashiach on the item, I'm kohen the item, and I'm mechuyev to pay you, right? But what if I gave you the cash? If I gave you the cash, there's no kinyan here, because there is no such thing as kinyan kesef. So in every transaction, we have to analyze, if I'm giving you dollar bills and I want to buy a safer, there's no doubt about it. The dollar bills are the currency, and the safer is the product. The Gemara refers to the currency as tiva, and the product as peri. But what if we are dealing with two things that are shtickle money-ish, like gold and silver coins? How do you determine what is the currency which, by giving it over, will not create a kinyan, and what is the product which, by giving it over, it will be a kinyan? And that's what Hazav discusses. And the reason why I find it so confusing is because in our world, currency is currency and everything else is peri. In that world, everything was relative. Depending on the transaction, what's being bought, what's being sold, one item gets designated as the kesef, one item gets designated as the peri, and therefore there's no universal monies. So in every case, we have to analyze what each part of the deal is to see what the currency is.
We have a parallel case today.
We do have a parallel case?
Absolutely.
What is that?
If you go and buy gold coins, there's a face value of the coin, but you pay a premium. So if you buy silver $25 coins, right, you're going to pay a premium. They're going to charge you more than $25 for those coins.
So that's clearly a payer.
It's clearly so. I mean,
hear.
you're changing in your fiat currency for the gold. You're paying the value of the gold. If you're changing, there's always going to be a differential in value.
I hear. So the Gemara is going to discuss how we assess it. There's going to be a little bit of a dispute in the Gemara, but the maskana that the Gemara is going to remain with is whichever one is more acceptable, is more liquid, it's easier to cash in. That's ultimately what's going to be designated as the currency. So let's have a look. Hazav koinis hakesef. If I want to buy kesef with gold, if I give him the gold and he makes a mashich on the gold, it's koinis hakesef. Clearly stating that when you're buying silver with gold, the gold is considered the product and the kesef is considered the currency. But a kesef ain't the koinis hazav, because kesef is considered currency. And when we say kesef, we mean silver coins. It's not koinis hazav because currency does not work. Kinyan kesef does not work. Okay, hanachoshes. What about copper versus kesef? Hanachoshes koinis hakesef. Once again, we're saying that nachoshes is going to be the product. Kesef will be the currency. But kesef ain't a koinis hanachoshes. So this seems to indicate, according to the maskana of Pshat in the Gemara, that the most liquid coin that was typically used, that was easiest to purchase with, was the silver, and that's why we consider it currency, both regarding silver, both regarding gold, and regarding nechoshes. Okay, what about mois? What the Mishnah does not discuss is nechoshes and zav, and that's a little bit of a controversy in the Rishonim. Mois harois, if you have bad money, meaning it's not so easy to liquidate this money, and rois could be Rashi's shenifsalut became possible. Tosfos has a whole discussion about what bad money is, but the general gist is it's money that's not so fluid, it's not so liquid like currency would be. Therefore, kodesh is a yafos. By yafos, ein and kodesh is a rois. A simon. What is in the simon? Rashi learns it's a blank coin. It's the right weight and it's the right dimensions, but it has not yet been stamped with the picture that's on it. Tosfos has other svara what it means. But that's not really an asimon because that also has a thing to it. But yeah, we used to call it asimon. That's right. You remember how many agurot an asimon costed? 25 agurot. It was 25 agurot per asimon. How do I remember? Because in our phone, in our dira, we had a moneh. So we would let people make phone calls. And we charged only 20 cents per sikha. So, and we made a fortune. Talk to Gemara. Especially in the El before Rosh Hashanah, when all these bachim would come speak to Rashivas, the mona would spin like a slot machine. We were raking it in. So anyway, asimoin kaina es a matbeya, matbeya eina kaina es asimon. The same thing, because the matbeya is considered more liquid than an asimoin. Metaltlin kaina es a matbeya. Matbeya eina kaina es a metaltlin, again, because metaltlin are the product and the matbeya is the currency. Kala metaltlin kaina zesa. Any metaltlin is kaina zesa. But that wouldn't work because if that would work towards Chalipin, but that's our first glance. Rashi will explain how that works. But let's just first see what the Mishnah says. What if you made Meshicha on the payers? And this is not referring specifically to Kala Matalton Koyin Zezeh. This is telling you how the Kesef works with the payers. So let's just read it. Payers, if you made Mashiach on the product, but you had not yet paid for it, it's that deal is legally sealed and you can no longer back out. You owe him the money and the payers belong to you. But what if you tried making a kinyan kesef? Nasan leimois, v'leimashach payers, there yachalachsaboy, and it's a shayla who could, as we'll see in a minute, but the Mishnah here holds anybody could be chayzer. It's not a deal. But there's still a commitment, right? When you did that, you're making a verbal commitment. You have not yet sealed the deal in Hilchos Choshen Mishpat, but you're still a lowlife if you back out because you're backing out of a deal that you made. And therefore, Aval Amru, Misha Para, my Anshe Adara Mabel, Umidara Falaga, who also li para, Mimisha Eino Emid Vidibure. The Rabbanish law will punish the Anshe Dara Mabel, and the Anshe Dara Falaga, he's going to punish you as well for backing out. So it's not like you can back out with zero consequence, but you could back out. If it was a proper deal, you would not be able to back out. Why do we curse the fellow with Dara Mabel and Dara Falaga? There have been other punishments that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has meted out.
Would that be the case if he just said it without actually giving him the money?
It seems like the commitment happens for sure if I gave the money. But what if I just said I'm going to make a deal? Pashas, yeah, Pashas, yeah, could be. If you make a deal with somebody, you back out, you get a mishapar. So I think I heard over that we know that loy nechtam dinam elamish gezel by the Dor HaMidbar. And the Dor HaFlaga, again, it was all based on people's greed. And therefore, it caused a lot of these problems. You backing out on the deal is usually generated by greed and a lack of bitachon that the Rebbeinu Shalom runs the world. So that's why these two events are chosen. But the lack of bitachon, because you made a deal with somebody, and Hashem will take care of you if you take care of your boy. So Reb Shimon says, we don't say that there's no deal at all with Kinyan Kesef. Rather, Kol Kesef biyada yada al hal yoyin. The seller who has the money in his hand, he doesn't have to refund it. And he could force the sale. The guy can not force a return. But the seller can say, no, I'm not giving you my payers, here's your money back. So it's a one-way deal for Reb Shimon. So the moicher has the upper hand if he has the cash. If the lekeich has the cash, he has the upper hand. So let's see how the kinyan works. I'm sorry?
Where did you have the money?
You can't, no, you still have the mishapara, but you're not legally bound. Okay, so how does the metalton kohen says? How does that work? Zok Rashi bein b'teres chalipin. So chalipin we know it works. I'm bartering an apple for an orange. Shehichlif elu b'elu. Kivan shemashach echad. Once one of these two people, the person let's say who's buying the orange and selling the apple, since as soon as he makes a mashich on the orange, the apple is automatically nikna to the other fellow, even though he didn't touch the apple. And Zok Rashi, this works with two different ways. Bein b'teres domim. What does it mean? Chalipin b'teres domim. I'm swapping an apple for an orange. It's because the transaction occurred in the following fashion. Kama titinli eshelcha. How much would you give me your orange for? V'kach v'kach. I'm going to charge you 75 cents for this orange. V'zeh chayzev omer. V'kama titinli shloch. How much would you charge me for your apple? And he answers, v'kach v'kach, 75 cents. So they said, you know, instead of changing money twice, let's just do a barter over nisratzu. They made a deal. There it works. Even though it's sort of a teres kesef. In other words, if it's a chalipin like Rav gives you a yarmulke, that for sure works. But even if we only made the exchange based on the fact that they were of equal value, that chalipin works as well. V'hai kol lasuye, when it says kol hamatal, it even includes a kiss mole mois, the kiss mole mois. We'll see in the Gemara why that's not considered currency. That's considered product. Okay, gewaltig. Zogt the Gemara, Masni le Rebbe, le Reb Shimon Barei. Rebbe taught his son Reb Shimon. Let me ask you a question. What if you have a father who's also your Rebbe? What are you supposed to call him, Tati or Rebbe? So this is actually a shayla in the Shulchan Aruch in your idea. So let's see if we can figure that out from our Gemara. Masni la Rebbe le Reb Shimon Barei. Rebbe taught his son Reb Shimon the following Mishnah: Hazov koine as a kesef, which is our Mishnah. Omar lei. So Reb Shimon told his father, Rebbe, shanisa lanu b'yaldu secha. When you were younger, you taught us the opposite. Hakesef koine as hazov. And then the sachzer v'sishnu lanu b'zikna secha. And now that you're older, you've changed what you've taught us. Rather, you taught us now hazov koine as a kesef. So therefore, there was clearly a change in his psak. What was the svara that he was working with in his youth, where he considered zov to be the money? And what does he say now, where kesef is considered the money? But whatever it is, the Ramah brings a raya from our Gemara that if it's a Rebbe and a father, you call him Rebbe, but that's only if it's his Rebbe Muvik. If it's his father just taught him certain things, then you wouldn't have to call him Rebbe. So he learns that Rebbe was Rebbe Shimon's Rebbe Muvik, and therefore his son referred to him as Rebbe and not as his father. Zok Gemara Baiter. So Zok Bialdusei Sober, in his youth, where he considered Zav the currency in comparison to silver, the Hava, the Choshev Havativ. It's not based on how liquid it is. It's based on how valuable it is. So the more valuable something is, the more we will consider it the currency. Tiv al Kasba the Loy Choshev, in relation to gold, silver is not as Choshev, Hava Peira, and therefore Vakani Le Peira Lativa. The silver will be kind of the gold because the silver is the pair, not the currency. But but once he got older, Savar he thought, he reconsidered that Kaspa the Charev, silver, which is very liquid and very easy. Rashi's Yosy by Tzav it's very good currency to use, very acceptable in any store. That's Havativa. And the Hava gold, the Loichar, it's not as accepted anywhere, right? You can't take a billion of gold and go into a grocery store and buy a package of cigarettes. Hava Peira, therefore it's considered pairs. And therefore, Vikani Le Peira Lativ. So Amar Bashi, Ki Alduse Mistavra. I think it makes more sense to say that the Zav is the currency in comparison to the silver. Why? Midikatani, we learned in our Mishnah, Hanachoshes Koina Es Azov. The Mishnah in the second case says that Nechoshes is for sure payray in respect to Kesef. Hanachoshes Koina Es Kesef. I'm sorry, I didn't read it right. Hanachoshes Koina Es Kesef. So surely Nechoshes is payray. Why is this a chiddush? Iamrit b'shleima kaspa lagabe dahava payra havi. If you're going to tell me that Kesef, in comparison to Zav, is Paris, which is like he said, B'Yaldusei, now we know why the Tana had to tell us the same thing in reference to Nechoshes. Hanu de Katani Hanechoshes Koine as a Kesef. Why? The Afal Pi de Lagabi de Hava Peiravia. Even though a moment ago we just said that silver is the Paris when you're doing a transaction with gold, but now silver changes, and now silver becomes the Tiva. So there's no fixed thing over here. Everything is a moving target. So although a moment ago we said Kesef is the peri, in this transaction with the Choshes, Kesef is the currency. That's very important to tell us it, because it's the same Kesef that in one scenario is considered payers, and in the other scenario is considered currency. But if you're going to learn like we learned Pizaknuse, that Kasper Abdahava is also Tivahava, so then I don't need you to tell me that Kesef Lagabe de Choshes is currency, because I have a Kabbalah Chomer. Hachi Lagabe de Hava, the Choshev Minei, Amrit Tevahava. We know there's another thought that if something's more precious, it should be considered currency. Yet Kesef is so strong in the currency column that even against Zav, that's more expensive, that's more valuable, we still consider Kesef the currency. So if that's the case, Lagabe de Choshes, surely, if in relation to Zav, Kesef is considered currency, surely in relation to the Choshes, Kesef should be considered currency because it has two advantages. Sai, it's more liquid, but it's also more valuable. So why would I need the Mishnah? Once the Mishnah tells me that Kesef is currency, Lagabe Zav, I know it's partial that Kesef is going to be currency, Lagabe Nechoshes. Zoktamar Itzrach, I would not necessarily know that. Because Sokadai de Chamina, Hani Priti, Ba'asher Diskuye, in Charifitzvei, Mikaspa. In most places, yes, Kesef is the most liquid currency. But there are places where Nechoshes is the primary used currency. So maybe in those places, we should consider Kesef as the peri in reference to Nechoshes. Kamachron across the board, Kesef is currency, no matter what you're comparing it to. Even if you're comparing it to Nechoshes, even in a place where Nechoshes is very popular. Dr. Gemara, Va'ashra the ski ini charifi tvei mikasba ema tiva have. Maybe the nechoshes in those places should be considered tiva and not peri. Kamash malon kivan the ikaduchta the loisagi bay. Since there are places where copper is not as liquid, while kesef is really accepted everywhere, pera havi. We consider the nechoshes in relation to the silver. We consider it pairs. Zok Gemara v'af Reb Chia Sovar the hava tivahav. Reb Chia also holds that gold is matpeya, meaning like the Yalduse. Why? The Rav Oizif dinari mibarte the Reb Chia. Rav borrowed dinare zahav from the daughter of Reb Chia. L'soif ak ayakar dinari. So the zahav went up in value, and now it's coming time to pay back. So we have a problem of ribis, because there's a halacha called saw b'saw. If I borrow $10 from you today, even if there's inflation and now $10 doesn't buy enough as much as it did, I can still give you back $10. It's a currency that I borrowed from you. But what if I borrowed a 5-pound bag of flour when it was worth $3.79, and now when I'm paying it back, there's inflation and now it's worth $5.79? Am I allowed to return that flour? So there's an Isser D'Rabbanan of ribis called saw b'saw. You're not allowed to lend saw to get back a saw because it looks like ribis, because it looks like he's paying me back a higher value than I gave him. So these dinarim went up. Now the question is, can he pay back? Also, look at me. So the question basically is this product? And if it's product, then I wouldn't be able to get that. Or is this currency? And if it's currency, I could give it back. So also look at Reb Chia. He went to ask Reb Chia, can I pay your daughters back? Okay, he must have trusted Reb Chia as a very independent source. Omer Lei, Reb Chia said, Zil Shlimla, of course you should pay her. Tav and the Tequila, good, high quality coin, you should pay her back. Now, what is the exact type of Tavin with Tequila?
Good.
Pay my daughter back with get the geld. Okay. If you're going to learn that gold is currency, which is how we learned B'Yalduse, then shopper, then it makes sense why you could pay back, because it's currency for currency. If you're going to say gold is just like a product, well then have a lesal b'sav aser. Then it would have been aser to pay back, because it would be considered saw b'sav. Zok Gemara, this is saw b'sav. In fact, it is. It's not currency to pay her. But I forgot to tell you that there's one exception to the prohibition of lending saw b'saw, and that is if I happen to have it. So I have flour in my warehouse, but I lost the key. I don't have the key. My son is not right here, and he's going to come in a couple of days, and he has the key to my warehouse to get the flour. There, I'm allowed to borrow a bag of flour from you and pay you back a bag of flour later, because since I had it by me the whole time, it doesn't look like ribis. It looks like I'm just selling you my bag for your bag, and you already have my bag the moment you gave me your bag. That's how it's perceived, and therefore they didn't make that issue. So Zoktamar, that's the same thing over here. Rav Dinri Havale, he had dinar in his safety deposit box, but his partner was out of town and he didn't have the key, but he was there when he borrowed it. The Havale Dinri, it's as if he told her, Helveni, lend me your dinarim until my son comes with my inventory, or until I find the key to where my product that's in existence right now is locked up. And therefore, there was no problem of saw. So therefore, we can maintain that gold is the product. And the reason why here there was no problem of saw is because he had it with him at the time that he borrowed it. He just couldn't access it. Omarova, High Tana Savar, our Tana holds the Hava Tivaha. Gold is currency. Which Tana? The one that we're about to quote. The Tanya. Pruta Sha'amru. Okay, so now we're going to get into another little complex issue. Pruta Sha'amru. When we say that to be Mekadesh a woman, it takes a pruta. How much is the value of a pruta? It's echad mishmoina be'isr harital. How do we evaluate the value of a pruta? We know the value of an isr haritalki. It's 1/8 of an isr harital. L'may nafkamina. Why is it relevant for me to know what the value of a pruta is? L'kedusha isha, so that we know the right amount to give a woman to be mekadesh. Isser, What about this Isra Talki? What's its value? It's Echod Me'esrim Verabah. It's 1/24th B'diner Shel Kesef. It's 1/24th of a dinar Shel Kesef. L'may nafkamina. Why is that relevant to me? L'mekach u'memkar. Let's see Rashi. What is this mekach u'memkar that we're talking about? Zokt Rashi. Mocher loy dinar. What if I sold somebody a dinar of kesef? B'yoser me'esim v'arba isrin. We're saying that a dinar is 24 isrin. What if I sold somebody a dinar for 30 isrin? I charged an extra 6. Kol ma shehela yeser al kain nis'ana lokeach. It's called aino. You're overcharging the lokeach any penny paid over the 24 isrin. Therefore, what if there's 1/6 aino? We know the halach is yachser aino. You have to pay it back. So if it's supposed to be 24, and I give him 28, that's exactly 1/6. Not sure it's borrowing milagav, but he'd have to give it back. So that's why that would be relevant. Now, dinar shel kesef, a dinar of kesef is echod me'esrim v'chamisha b'dinar shel zav. That's 1/25th of a dinar of zav. L'may nafkamina. Why is that relevant to me? Lepidyon haben. That's relevant to pidyon haben. Why is that relevant to pidyon haben? So again, Rashi explains very simple. Because a pidyon haben is chamisha shkolim of silver, not of gold. V'shekel da'iraisa husela. Okay, now, so therefore, how do we figure this out? Vasela dalid dinare kesef. A sela is 4 dinarim of kesef. So therefore, when you give 5 sloyim, so 4 times 5 is 20. Shemchav dinar. So the amount of money that you have to give a kohen is 20 dinare kesef. Now, how many dinare kesef are in a dinar of zov? 25. So therefore, im nosan lo yavia ben dinar zov. What if the father of the son gave the kohen a dinar zov, which means he gave him 25 dinarim of kesef? Machshir lo yakoyen chamisha dinare kesef. The kohen will have to give him back the extra 5, right? Because 20 dinari kesef, which is not a full dinar zov, is what the right price is. Therefore, he has to give some back. So this is our price. That's a whole different shaila about the money that goes to a kohen by pidyon haben. There's actually a shaila if the kohen is mechuyev to give it back. Because if he's a kohen that it's hochsak, that we know without a doubt that he has a yichus brief back to Aaron the kohen, yeah, there you give him. But today, most Kohanim don't have such proof. So there are shittas who hold that the kohen has to give it back. And there's also shittas who hold that for the rest of your life, anytime you meet a kohen, you should do the transaction with him over and over again, because maybe you never got a kohen. So there's a lot of Torah on pidyon haben. I never had to learn the Torah because I never had a son. I had 4 daughters before I had a son. So like, to be sure I wouldn't have to make pidyon haben, Hashem said, not even 1 daughter, I need 4 daughters. Don't even think about a pidyon haben. Okay, so Zok Gemara. So now that we have this, let's do the assessment. If you're going to tell me that gold is currency we don't say fluctuates. We say everything fluctuates around it. So if you're going to consider gold currency, then it makes sense. Mishar Tana B'midi the kids. Gold is the gold standard, literally. That's the currency. Everything else revolves around it. And as a matter of fact, Tosfos even learns that even when we were talking about Pruta and Isser, that's all based on what fraction of gold it is. And that's why we built it up from Pruta to Isser to Kesef to Zav. Because everything is benchmarked based on the Zav. It makes sense to benchmark everything on the Zav if the Zav is considered currency and we perceive it that everything else changes in value, but not the gold. But if you're going to say gold is like any other commodity that goes up and goes down, how could we use that as the benchmark? Mishar Tana, B'midi the Oiker Vizil. It's going to work out that Zimnin the Mahadle Kahana. Sometimes if the Yisrael pays him with a dinar zav, he'll have to give him back 5, as we made the cheshbon before, because you only need to give 20 dinar kesef. V'zimnin the Moisevlei Iu Lakana. And sometimes a full dinar zav won't even be enough, because gold fluctuates, and maybe the kesef now is worth more than the gold. But the fact that we can say guaranteed everything is based upon its relationship to gold, it means gold is the gold standard. Shmamino tiva hava shmamino. So from this brisa, you see clear that this town at least holds that gold is always considered a currency. That's not consistent with our Mishnah, but that's what he holds. The reason why I always struggled with Perek Azov is there's no such thing as currency. Everything goes up and down, right? Every commodity goes up and down, right? So it's something that I never got my head around, but maybe as we learn the Blätter, things will become clear. Tanan also, Beishamai Oimrim, Lo Yasa Adam Sloyin Dinarizov. Now we're talking about Meiser Sheni. You have Meiser Sheni, and you have Sloyin. So you've already been Mechalel, your Paris of Meiser Sheni, onto Sloyin, which I believe are silver. You shouldn't now change up to gold, because you don't want to have a big bag of silver that you got to schlep with you up to the base of Mikdash. When you're Oila Regal, you want to have large bills. So you'd rather have it in gold. Visil Matirin. Visil does allow you to change up. And now we have a machloikis between Rabbi Yochanan and Shlokish, how to understand the machloikis Beishamai and Visil. Rabbi Yochanan and Shlokish. Chad Omar, machloikis Bisloin al Dinarin. The whole machloikis of Beishamai and Visil is only to swap from silver to gold. The Beishamai Savri, Beishamai holds Kaspa Tiva. Beishamai holds that the currency is not gold, the currency is silver. Udahava Pera, gold is considered like the product. V'tiva Pera lo mechalelina. When you're a mechalel, you're allowed to be mechalel from Paris onto money, but you can't be mechalel from money onto Paris. That's how chil works by Ma'aser Sheni. You can be mechalel onto money, but not onto Paris. You only can buy Paris once you're in Yerushalayim, but when you're consolidating to move up, you could only put it on currency. Uvesil Savri, Kaspa Pera. Vesil it was a kesev that's the Paris, Udahava Tiva, and therefore but what would it be if it was Paris al dinarin? What if I had raw Paris and I wanted to directly redeem them with gold? Everybody would hold you could do that, because my timer, midi have a kesef lebesilo. Kesef according to Besilo. What is the halacha? Afal gav the kaspa legabi dahava. Even though kesef, according to Besilo, is considered currency legabi the gold. And therefore, you cannot put the kedusha from the silver coin onto the gold, but pera hava legabe pera. But it will be considered Paris. I'm sorry, avagav the kesef legabe the hava pera hava. Even though kesef in relation to gold is considered Paris, and therefore you can't do it. Legabe pera tiva hava, but legabe Paris, it for sure is considered currency. That's how Beisil would learn. So therefore, have a Zov Nami Beishamai. Zov according to Beishamai. Well, we didn't let you put silver onto the gold. Avagav de Dahava Lagabe Kaspa Perahava. Even though gold in relation to silver is considered Paris, and therefore you cannot be Mechal the silver onto the gold, but Lagabe Pera, if you're comparing gold and Paris, surely Tivahava, surely it would be Paris. So in other words, there's no absolutes. You always look at the two things involved in the transaction. So one of the two Mandamer, either Rabbi Yochanan or Rish Lakish, learn that everybody agrees, even though there's a machlokish, if you could be machal silver onto gold, everybody holds you can be machal Paris onto gold, because for sure between Paris and gold is the currency. Sorry? That's right. Paris will be Paris. But the Chadamar, but there's another man who holds after Paris al dinarin machlokes, and Beishamai would not even allow you to be mechalo Paris onto gold, because it's considered Paris, and you cannot be mechalo at all. So this is our machlokes, Rabbi Yochanan Shlokish, how to understand the machlokes Beishamai Bisol. Zok the Gemara. No. Frank Gemara Ulamanda Amar after Paris al dinarin machlokes, according to the Bandam holds, the Beishamai holds you cannot even be mechalo Paris onto gold. Why did the Brisa quote the machloikis between Beishamai and Basil when you're being machal silver onto gold? You should be a bigger chiddush. Live like Paris al dinarim to tell you that even Beishamai holds even that's not allowed. Zok Gemara, true, it would show a bigger chiddush in Beishamai, but it would show a smaller chiddush in Basil. If like Paris al dinarim, havamina handemili Paris al dinarim, where Basil holds it works. Al Bisloy al dinarim. Maybe Moidi land Beisil Beishamai. Maybe Beisil would be Moida. Did the Hava Lagabe Kaspa Perahava that silver legabe gold, that gold legabe silver is payers v'loy machalin, and you can't. Kamash Malan. So the reason why the machlokes b'Shamai and b'Hillel were stated between gold and silver is to highlight the chiddush of Hillel, that even gold and silver you can be machal the silver and the gold. Okay, let's stop here because Tistayim gets into a whole new bundle of wheats. But you know what? We still have 4 minutes, so I'll read the words. Tistayim der Rabbi Yochanan who damer ein machal. Let's say that it's Rabbi Yochanan who learned pshat in the machlokes b'Sham and b'Hillel that even payers on gold you cannot be machal. Why? The Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, "Aser lelavois dinner b'dinner." You're not allowed to lend a dinner out, and the fellow is going to pay you back a dinner. Rashi b'dinner zov. Dinner is referring to gold. So I'm not allowed to lend you a dinner to get back a dinner, which we just had the story with who borrowed from the daughters of Reb Chia. What was the story? Rav. Rav borrowed from the daughters of Reb Chia, and he did borrow dinner by dinner. But Rabbi Yochanan said you're not allowed to do that. Dr. Gemara, Demai. What type of dinner, Demai? What type of dinner? Ilema dinner shel kesef. If we're talking about silver, b'dinner shel kesef, l'gabe nafshei mi k'lemanem alav tevava. Everybody holds silver to silver is zikr like cash. There's no reason why anybody can ever outlaw something like that. Elapshita, the discussion where Rabbi Yochanan prohibited it, must be dinner shel zov, b'dinner shel zov. So he's saying you're not allowed to swap zov with zov. Clearly, he's considering it payers and not currency. Ulaman, ila Beis Hillel, ha'armitivahab. Beis Hillel already told us that gold is currency. He allows you to swap silver to gold. So clearly, gold is considered currency. Elav Beis Shammai, the only person who could conceivably agree with this, to consider gold payers, and therefore you won't be able to be malava dinner by dinner because it's saw b'saw. It must be Beis Shammai u'shma mina Rabbi Yochanan hu d'amar ein mechalalidan. It must be that it was Rabbi Yochanan who understood that Beis Shammai holds that zov is payers, and therefore you can't be mechal anything on zov, even payers on zov, and therefore you can't even lend dinner to get back a dinner. Okay, we'll stop here. Party's over. Azov is very, very complicated.